Joining today. I'm Kirsten, and I'll be your moderator today. Critical Conversations was launched in June 2020 as a way to bring the Gladstone community together around important issues and feature out-of-the-ordinary speakers who would broach topics that Gladstonians may not be used to hearing within the virtual walls of Gladstone. Over the years, Communications has had many requests to learn more about branding, personal branding, which brings us to our very special guest speaker today, Cynthia Johnson, a global entrepreneur, marketing professional, author, keynote, and co-founder at Bell & Ivy, a marketing and PR firm in Santa Monica and Las Vegas. She's here today to talk to us about personal branding and how it can help position you as an expert in your field, connect with colleagues, and draw attention to your work and research. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question directly or add it into the chat box and we'll get to it. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome and hand it over to Cynthia.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kristen. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Great. So as Kristen said, my name is Cynthia Johnson, and I talk a lot about personal branding. Actually, I co-founded an agency, Bell & Ivy, where we implement personal branding strategies into all of our digital campaigns. We also run personal branding campaigns and employee branding campaigns, which I'll get into a little bit later. I wrote a book with Penguin Random House called Platform, The Art and Science of Personal Branding. And my discovery or introduction into personal branding actually came while I was working at a healthcare company. And I worked a lot with the clinicians and doctors and nurses, executive teams, business development teams, the marketers, alumni, all of the different pieces. And what I realized was that the heart and soul of the business was really the people. And we launched these massive personal or employee branding campaigns around telling stories about our people, cleaning up their digital presence. And it had a huge impact. We launched a podcast that had over 1 million downloads. We did a lot of really creative things. And I realized that the change that I wanted to see happen, especially with marketing dollars, I couldn't do while I was working inside of a company. So I left, we started Bell & Ivy, and that's where we are today. So how this session will be broken down is introductions. We've already done that. I'll go a little bit into why personal branding, what is it, what isn't it? Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions around this idea of, oh, you have to package yourself or you're selling yourself. And that's actually not how I view it at all. And then we'll go into a little bit about why is this important to you and your career? And some brand identity tips, brand messaging, and some Q&A. As we go through the session, I love feedback. Sometimes I move quickly. I have a lot of slides here, so I will tend to move quickly through sections to leave additional time both at the end and for other sections. So if you need me to slow down, if you need me to answer a question or something pops in your head, feel free to just unmute yourself and go ahead and take the mic. I want to make this as collaborative and communal as possible. Let's get started. So who has a personal brand? Everybody has a personal brand. And 20 years ago, that wasn't necessarily the case. 15 years ago, less so. But if you've ever been to a wedding, a baby shower, a birthday party, the chances are you are online somewhere. I mean, if you just go to work, the odds are someone has a picture of you somewhere online. And that's really the start of the personal brand in the digital space. But if we remove the digital space, we've always really had a personal brand. Down to what does our resume look like? I mean, that's basically a brand portfolio. Here's everything you need to know about me. What do you wear? How do you show up to an interview versus a party or your mom's house? So all of those pieces define a little bit about who we are and tell a story. And it starts really at birth. I mean, we're given a name, we're given a first name, we're given a last name, we belong to a family. We're seeing this transitional shift in the period, but it was, female, male, birthday, all of these are informative pieces of information that start to define who we are. Are you a Taurus? Are you this? As much as we think that it doesn't affect us, but it really does have an impact on how we see the world or how we see ourselves and how we show up. And in some cases, you earn a title that is part of your personal brand. So are you a PhD? Well, everybody here, or most of you here should be. And that's important. That's something that you've worked towards, that you own, and it is part of your personal brand. So when we talk about the idea of packaging yourself and selling yourself, that's really not what we're doing. We're just transitioning to this from what we would traditionally do in the real world to the online world. So who needs to manage the brand is really the next question. And that is everyone. Because we end up online in all of these random places, because we've been on Facebook for going on, 10 or 12, or I think even 15 years almost now, we really have no idea what other people can find, and we should always know. If you have an Amazon account or a Yelp account, you've left a review on anything, you are online somewhere, and there may be information that someone else can see, especially as the algorithms change how they're feeding search results to people. Then what they see starts to change, it becomes more personalized. And so if you don't know what exists online about you, then it becomes very hard for you to understand what's in the way of your next opportunity. So the challenge: what you do, what you say, how you look online is the full presentation of who you are. And how you look, for instance, appears differently depending on where you're looking. So if you are applying for a job and they look at your LinkedIn or they Google you, they might find one thing. If they happen to be friends with you on Facebook or connected to you in some way, they might see a different view. And in some cases, which I've seen in the online dating world, is people can take your phone number, your address, and see a whole different picture of who you are. And so we really don't know how someone's going to search for you, but we should always know what they're going to find. And I see it as a credit score. The difference is no one's been given the same parameters around, okay, when someone's looking at your credit score, probably what they're going to find, and what their expectation is and why they're there. With your personal brand, you actually don't know why necessarily someone's looking for you. You don't always know where. And for most people, they don't know what they'll find, but it has an impact on their perception and can actually hinder or benefit you in many ways. So where do we start? We start with the boring part, which is the foundation building. There's a lot of content out there that says you've got to be in all these places and you have to be producing a lot of things, and you should just start. Yes, I agree, you should just start, but you should start from a firm, stable foundation. And what that means is you have to clean things up a bit first. So we call this ego surfing. It's where you go online or you go on to a different platform and you search yourself. The difference is, in the digital marketing world, we would create lists for websites, and we would have a keep list and a kill list and a consolidate list. And what that meant was, here's a bunch of content that we can keep and it's perfect. And then here's a bunch of things that need to go away. They're not on brand, the content's not benefiting the site, or maybe it's just outdated. And then the consolidate and or add section, which is what needs to be cleaned up but should stay. And for your personal brand, that means a few things. So first, let's start with the search. You've got your list. You have your keep list, your kill list, and your consolidate or add list. And then you're going to search yourself. The searching part, you have to get creative. Set aside some actual time because you want to search all of your emails, old emails, new emails, search for things like your old, AOL chat message name or your phone number or previous phone number or address, social media account usernames, anything that you've been tied to publicly, basically for your entire life. So before you were online, that would be your addresses and phone numbers. After you were online, that's any basic detailed stuff. So any email you've ever used, and do a little digging on Facebook, on LinkedIn, use an incognito window, then pass it off to your mom. Have your mom search, or your dad, or a close family member or friend. Because if your mom or your friend can find it, so can someone else. And so we want to make sure that we have a really thorough view of your online presence. And part of that is because we don't always know what our privacy settings are on all the platforms. Sometimes we don't even recognize how many platforms we're on. So if you have this old Facebook picture from 2006, 2007, and maybe you don't look like a PhD then, maybe you look like you're at a party or something, you want to have that removed. And it takes that thorough and investing that time and energy into really searching and understanding what's out there for you to know what to fix. Okay, so now as you do your search, start putting everything you find. Okay, I found an old LiveJournal website and I don't have the password anymore. Or here's another social media account I cannot access and it has a bunch of old content about me, but it's my face. That goes into the kill list, and you create a plan for removing those things or burying them. The keep list, things that look great, no need to touch them, and then places to add. And we'll get into the add section because we can do that actually fairly quickly. And then look, so I will send out a link, but it's cynthialive.com/platform. I have guides on how to do this, but looking at your privacy settings on every platform that you use. That's anything from, like I said, Amazon or Yelp to Facebook and Google. Two reasons. One, an example would be Facebook, when they launched hashtags, they didn't tell people that when they used a hashtag, they basically opted out of their privacy settings and your post was now public. That's just an example of the fact that these platforms are run by people and people make mistakes. And so you want to just double check that your security settings are exactly where you want them to be. Another example of why this matters, there was a potential client we were going to work with. We search everyone that we work with, and we found pretty scathing reviews online, like really mean reviews about products and services. And her privacy settings were public. And so we could see these, and we actually decided not to work with her because of that. And she didn't know that they were public. To be honest, she may have not even left them, because a lot of families now are sharing Alexa accounts, which is connected to Amazon and so on. So take the time and ask yourself these questions and double check those privacy and security settings. Yeah. Now, should you decided, okay, I know what the settings are, what should be private and what should be public. If you question it, just make it private. There's no reason. Your profiles will actually still show up in search engines even if they're private. So if it's a question, you're not sure, just move it to private and think about who you allow into your network. And that's really all you have to do. But don't leave something public, especially, in certain industries that are a little bit more regulated. There have been cases where doctors or MDs posting to a group saying, hey, I just want some feedback from other MDs. This person's x-ray, they didn't realize the person's name was in the corner of the x-ray. They lose their job, they lose their license. So if there is a question, just leave it private. Okay, so now you have to define and reset. Excuse me, what does that mean? Okay, so we've all heard this, or if you haven't, great, I'm glad to be the first one to share with you. Personal branding is the means by which people remember you. That's great. So if we want to know what your personal brand is currently and the appropriate changes to make, then we need to understand how people remember you now. And people usually remember you, especially since we've all been in these quarantines, by what they find online and how they interpret it. And how people interpret what's online is largely based on or mirrored to how advertisers view you online. So if we look at some of our advertising settings, we'll know how we're being seen. And part of it, part of sort of that defining pieces actually have nothing to do with what we post and a lot to do with what we look at and click on. And then we start to appear in searches for those things. And so it's when you're trying to decide between your professional life and your personal life, you have to remember to go to those private settings and also engage with content, not just post content that's appropriate for your professional self, but also engage with content that's more appropriate for your professional self. And then that's how you'll start to see a bump in people following you for the right reasons. Okay, so how do we do it? Here's an example that everyone can actually do right now. If you want to go into your Instagram, assuming that you have one, this is one way to see how Instagram has sort of categorized you based on how you behave on their platform. So knowing that Facebook and Instagram are one and the same, it's important to know that they share that information. So take a look. You go into Instagram, click your settings and your ad settings. You can reset these. And if they don't match what you're trying to achieve now, I highly suggest you just reset them, start over, test a few things. The algorithm gets to decide a lot what we see, and it really sort of guides us through our day. And there's no reason why we shouldn't use that exact same tool and framework to benefit from it. So the more you're looking at the kind of work you're trying to do or that you are doing, the more you're going to see that content and you're going to get bumped. You're going to get rewarded for it. This is an example of what it looks like. I've reset this. This is very old, but basically you get a list of these things, and some of them are on spot on, and others you're like, I don't actually like that thing. I just saw a really weird video and it stopped me in my tracks and I maybe looked at it for too long. Well, that informs the platforms, and Instagram is a mobile platform that everyone tends to be on, or a lot of people are on. So I use it as an example, but you can do this across multiple different channels and social platforms, search engines, and reset them all. Just a couple of places. So Amazon. I say this because Amazon is the most shared open platform that people don't realize is full of information being shared out to everyone else if it's not set up correctly. And so what you buy. Also remembering that it's not just Amazon, and it's Amazon Kindle, and it's Amazon, Audible, and they own Goodreads, and they own all of these other social sites that are taking your purchase history, your review history, listening to you in your house with Alexa. And so you just want to make sure that those places, reset them, get your information back, start fresh. Why does this matter? Okay, so back to trying to get a job. So roughly 80% of the jobs are never posted, probably closer to 90% for senior jobs. This stat is actually pre-COVID. And what is left out of this piece of information is that before it gets a headhunter, recruiter even starts to look, they use bots, and the bots use keywords, and the keywords sort of sort through different profiles. And then they're given a very specific list to target, narrowing it down. So if your ad settings are a reflection of how you're being seen online, then that means when those bots are looking for you, and they're being given one set of information, when they need to actually be given a different one, the person you're trying to be, that's the idea of looking for a job. So instead of the bots and the algorithms sort of, moving things along too quickly and hurting people's careers, you can actually set yourself up for success and start appearing in the right search results for the right searches, just by making a few adjustments. The other part of this is 70% of the global workforce is made up of passive talent who aren't actively seeking for a job. Yet they make up 87% of the people given the job. And that is because, again, those bots are looking for that perfect job fit. And the perfect job fit is usually someone who's already done that job, or someone who matches the skill sets of a person who's already doing that job. So you really have to think, what do I need to look like and sound like to even be given an opportunity to apply for the job that I want? And you've probably seen this a lot, the same people jumping around, within their career. They get a new job offer every year, every 2 years. And it's because they've become known for that job, and it's triggered the algorithms, it skips the bots. And then of course, personally, right? So sometimes your offline world reflects your online world. Okay, so who are you? There's a couple of tools I'm going to go through that will allow you to both understand the personality type and keywords that go with a job that you may be looking for, and also what the internet thinks of you based on how you write and how you communicate. That's another piece of this. So, you've done it. You've cleaned up your platform. You've reset everything, and you're ready. You're like, okay, let's make sure I'm the right fit. Start with Crystal Knows. Maybe some of you've heard of it. If you haven't, it takes your email address and your LinkedIn profile, scours the web for everywhere and anywhere that you've communicated, and then it profiles you. And yes, this is also used to sort of do that bot search before it gets to the recruiters. And that's even used once the recruiters get to it to make final decisions. So here's an example of what it looks like. So this is a Chrome extension, and this is my business partner, and it just pulls up his exact personality profile. But it doesn't really stop there. It also tells me how to communicate with this person based on what I want from them and the medium in which I plan to get it. So this means I want to get a job and I want to do it on the phone, or I want to get a job and I want to do it over email. It will actually create scripts and help move this along. But for our purposes here is to get an idea of what and how your profile is being used, so you can make adjustments if they're needed. Yep, here we go. So I need to call Zach so I can negotiate. And it tells you how to start the conversation and so on. It will also compare your two profiles side by side. So if, let's say, you find someone who has the job you want, or a similar job, or 3 people or 4 people, you can compare your profiles. And again, I'm not saying become these people, but I'm saying that if you're up against the AI's interpretation of what a role is in order to even get the first interview, then you start to have to adjust the language of your profile a little bit, even just to get to that first step. And then once you start making those adjustments, it'll tell you the actual job fit. Oh, I think I have a question. Okay, is the service free? Okay, so the service is, I believe, $29, but there is a free trial. I gave this presentation or a similar presentation recently to a group of students at Northeastern, and it was a club, and the club members told me the founder of Crystal Knows was from their club. So I'm actually trying to get free memberships for educational purposes. So if I get that, I will reach out and I'll send the code to everyone. We're in like the midst of that discussion right now. But yeah, it's $29 for the basic use. And then I believe if you wanted to use it, yep, there is a free trial. Thank you, Patricia. There's a free trial. But let's say this is like just too much. This is actually just fun, right? You get in there, you could probably be on here for a long time, but it also will tell you, Grammarly does this as well, but it'll tell you sort of what you sound like, how you're coming off, all the job prep stuff. Well, this tool will actually do this for free. It won't do all of the things we just talked about, but I'll go through a couple of things that it will do. So this is, excuse me, this is the University of Cambridge, applymagicsauce.com. They have some pretty interesting tools. I just love this. It's constantly evolving, right? But the base tools have been here now for 5 or 6 years. I don't think they're going anywhere, but they've added a ton of different things. So they'll teach you on this site how to export your Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn data, and then upload it. And then it will profile you as well. And the reason, again, I know this sounds very like creepy and almost too much. And the only reason we're talking about it is because someone else is doing it and they're using your information to make decisions about you, to make decisions about your qualifications, and to make, without ever speaking to you personally. At a certain point of your career, that'll shift and that changes. But there are ways to sort of help it along. And it also has an open text reader, and they don't store the text, anything remotely like that. It's just, it'll basically profile you based on your writing sample. And it's eerily accurate, because other than the fact that I am 34 years old, and this is pretty spot on. I mean, I'm a fairly androgynous 34-year-old. So congratulations to me. And they've nailed it. But yeah, it gives you an idea of just how accurate and in some cases inaccurate the reading of who you are is. But let's say that I am a 28-year-old, or maybe I'm a 30-year-old even, and I am trying to get a job as, let's see. Do you have any idea of how frequently this way of reviewing people is used in academia versus industry? I don't know, but any sort of AI tool used to sort people, something else I will send to you are a couple of case studies where people intentionally went out and redid their profiles to match, to basically match what bots were looking for, to see if they would have a higher chance of getting responses from resumes. And just like the results are pretty astonishing. I don't know what the difference is. I just know that most AI tools use this kind of. Hi, Helen. Oh, but that's a good question. I mean, you know, I'm happy to even look into it and see what the differences are. But yeah, this is open. They're actually looking for people to participate in this research, being that most of you are researchers. If you are interested, you can apply. I think they take 100 new profiles a month or something like that, and they'll actually work with you and do a profile and send you the results, and kind of, I think a little bit, it's more, it tells you a bit more about what they're doing with the data and what they're looking for and why they're looking for it. So I can't apply again because I did this 5 years ago, and now I'm sure it's evolved and progressed and advanced in many, many ways. So the second is, all right, well, now you know you can do this. How do you find the right, who do you compare it to? Where do you even get started? So Twitter is like the best tool. Whether you use it, no problem, Patricia. So no matter if you use it, you're active on Twitter to engage with people, to share content, whatever it is. From a research perspective, the opportunities are really endless here. I won't go into all of them now, but I will go into a couple or a few that are, I think, important here. Something else to note is that Twitter shares their data with Google, and Google owns YouTube, and that's why you see those tweets showing up in search results and things. So if you are on Twitter, just again, this goes back to reset, make sure that the advertising statuses are all matching what you're trying to do, because that's how you'll be ranked in both Google and Twitter over time. But that aside, let's figure out who are the top researchers. Like, who are the people getting all the jobs? For example, what are they doing? So I'm well aware that there are endless or a variety of different ways to get into research, and all different types of research. So if you utilize Twitter's advanced search, you can really sort of fine tune what you're looking for. So it's, for these purposes, you know, I just went with researchers because I did, you know, I was trying to keep it as vague and simple as possible. But you can get pretty creative, right? So you can look at accounts, who they mention, who they talk about, what they talk about, or what you don't want them to mention, hashtags they've used. Does it include a link? Does it not include a link? Does it get engagement? What are the dates? How many retweets? All of these things you have the ability to go in. So if you're looking for specific types of profiles or jobs, or if you're people to include in your research, I don't know if that's a thing, or content that does really well, this is a great way to do it. You can also save all of these searches and then export them. So it's definitely useful and fast. Another way to do it is you go to Gladstone Institute, for an example, and you're like, I want to find people who have a pretty solid established brand that are in the space that come from a similar background, potentially, or in some way connected to things similar to me. Well, we all know you're connected to Gladstone Institutes. Start there. Then click on who are they following? And you can kind of get an idea here, like, okay, well, what are these people doing? What is their career trajectory? And now you can use their online profiles and start to compare them side by side, just to get an idea of like what do you need to sound like a little bit? What are they sharing? Where are they showing up online that sort of helped them and benefited their career? For this, I chose Patrick because it's my brother's name. And let's see, what's Patrick up to? Clicked on his profile and I was like, okay, see, he's giving a lecture that's very clear. And he's got a Google Citations Scholar link here. I'm like, all right, nice, because the link that you choose to use and the places that you tag all connect back to you. So if you are, like Patrick, associated with any or all of these variety types of institutions that reflect your career choice or what you're trying to do, please do include them. And then what I've seen for researchers primarily is a Google Scholar link and or a link to a lab's profile or to latest research, which is usually on the landing page of a lab's website, just to give you an idea of what seems to be your industry standard. And I pulled this up and I was like, whoa, this is great. It's just all of his research connected directly to Google. And what a beautiful example of, I know nothing about what he's talking about, and yet I understand him pretty well at this point. It just took a couple of clicks. And now you have writing samples, you have his profiles, he's got a verified Berkeley email. You can follow him and get alerts when he updates things, or if he's looking to hire people, or his career's changed. And you can get your own profile, which is great. We'll get into a little bit later as well. All right, 20 minutes. Okay. You can also look for different types of things you're engaging with. Maybe you're looking for a conference, job, or grants. There are actually a ton on Twitter and a ton of conferences in the space. I was actually really surprised. And you can export, like I said, all of these results once you've saved them. So whatever you're looking for, whoever you're looking to compare to as you're putting your profile together, or if you're looking for new opportunities once it's together, spend some time on Twitter. Like I said, you don't have to be active there to really benefit from it. Okay, so let's storytelling and profile building. This is how I see personal branding. You have your personal proof. That is education, sometimes experience, credentials, achievements. I see this as everything that you have to do in order to feel like you're prepared to do the next thing, even if you didn't have to do it. So I don't have to go to an art school to be an artist, but some people do have to go to art school to feel like they're an artist, and that's okay. So those are personal proof items. Social proof are the years of experience, writings and publications, or your speaking engagements, anything that shows that you've been positioned as an authority in a space of any kind. In your case, PhD, association, where you went to school, who you've worked with, papers you've written, the different people that were involved in those papers and how you're connected to each other. And then the recognition, which is huge in your space. I have some slides about content, but lists of top 10 this and top 3, top 4, it actually consumes quite a bit of the content in the space that is not research paper, just blog content, media content, things like that. Lists and awards and recognition tend to be valued quite highly. So keep that in mind. So you take this, and what I say is you kind of fill it out, right? So what are your personal proof items? What are your social proof items? And put it to the side. And the next, so your brand identity. It's a way to structure your bio. Your name, job, followed by current job title, description of your current role. So the difference between job and job title is a job. I would consider myself a marketer. So maybe I would put Cynthia Johnson, marketer and CEO of, or, because I built a marketing agency. It's what you do before where you do it, and your role where you do it. So keep that in mind. It actually means more earlier on in your career or transitioning to a higher level role. Recognitions. Once you've written your bio, hand it off to 3, 4, 5 people. Give them 1 minute to read it. Take it back and then ask them what the most impressive thing on the bio was. And it's never usually what we think. It's usually the one thing that I would consider a sort of verbal crutch, where I know how I can describe you now in a way that's impressive. So it's impressive that you went to, let's say it's impressive that you went to school somewhere, and it probably took the most energy and resources from you to do that. And so you'll value it very high. But normal people will see that, oh, well, she's or he's on a list of the top 5, people in new research on any magazine, and they'll think that's the most impressive thing, and you will be like, that's not. So get that feedback loop going. And again, because we don't get much space, and what we're able to read, and what the algorithms and AI are able to read usually happens in the first few sentences. So when you look at making sure you tag, you want to be attached to the brands and the important things that you've done, even if they're past. And the most important thing is your contact information. I've seen this a lot. Nobody wants to contact me, but does anybody know how? And so when you're doing your research about where you are online, what needs to go, what needs to stay, also test how easy it is to get in touch with you. You'll probably be surprised at how much harder it is than you think. I put my email everywhere, and I do not get spammed nearly as much as you would assume or think. So if you are looking for new opportunities, or you're looking for a certain kind of thing, just mention maybe what it is, or that you're up for networking, and put your email there. I know that's not for everyone, but it is something to consider if you are seeking opportunity, and the big important takeaways are also good to know, because this is your character limit on average per site. It's not very much. So think about and get the feedback of what is the most important piece that should be sort of pushed forward. We don't want things lost. I'll actually go through this pretty quickly, this piece. I believe that everyone should invest in a nice headshot and a nice picture. If it's not something you want to do, I would assume or believe that most people have invested in a nice phone. And so the camera on those phones is great. If you're not going to go the route of getting a headshot, it's because the same reason you wouldn't go to a job interview wearing flip-flops, or maybe what, I don't know, but or you show up in shorts for a certain event. It's the message that's being sent. So if you have to take your own headshot, or you want to take your own headshot, my advice is get a ring light. They're like $30. They will last, and they come with a remote. You take a picture of yourself, and now you have a headshot that is at least in the right direction, and has decent lighting. Second piece is, if you don't get your own, if you don't hire someone to do your headshots, go on Fiverr and make sure you at least hire 1 or 2 people to edit your headshots, because you shouldn't do it yourself. Usually what happens is you come out looking, we all come out looking like we're 50, somewhere between 15 and 25. And if we're editing our headshots, we're probably older than that. And just giving it to somebody else, get a couple variations, and try to have, a nice presentable looking picture that you can use for many years to come. If you change your profiles across the web, you also want to make sure that you change them all at once, because your headshot is very much like a logo. Okay, and you get free headshots. Perfect. If you go in the chat, there's information about free headshots. So take them up on it, right? Make sure you just get your headshot, and think of your headshot as your logo. You wouldn't see, you wouldn't see a big brand or someone who's doing or a company doing a lot of things, changing their logo from platform to platform, and it's fuzzy or hard to see or hard to understand in one but not another. Don't feel like your headshot needs to be a glamour shot, or you're staring straight at the camera. In fact, some of the most successful headshots I've seen out there, they're not looking at the camera, right? If you're not comfortable looking at the camera, don't look at the camera. Just look engaged somewhere else. I call it the distracted genius look. You can take pictures like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. Those types of really big personal brands have mastered the art of not looking at the camera. So don't, if it's something you're not comfortable with, find ways to get a shot that you can be comfortable with. It doesn't have to be like everyone else's. It just has to look professional enough, and organized and intentional. Organized. Okay. So people know what, okay, go. People know what Google tells them, and Google knows what you tell it. That means that if you have a very common name, like Cynthia Johnson, for instance, you're competing with so many other Cynthia Johnsons out there, anything from senators to like musical artists, and or in some cases you have a really uncommon name, which is a whole different set of problems or hurdles, we'll call it, not problems. The more you tell Google, the less information about you that you did not put out yourself will appear. So if, let's say this is a drastic, maybe there's a mugshot. I use this because it's the most drastic thing. Well, one of two things are going to happen. If you have a very common name, no one will probably ever see it. If you have a very uncommon name, you're going to be fighting to get rid of it. Well, those websites that take that information about you that you don't want there and try to extort from you, they're really good at making sure Google knows who you are. And a way to be proactive about this, potentially, content going out there that you don't want, or old content, or whatever it is to tell Google lots of things. And and own the space. I use Sarah Robohagen a lot because I just think she's so impressive. She was, I think, like the CMO of Nike or something at 27. She's mastered personal branding. She's insane. And there are all these places where you can tell Google everything they want to know. And this is how you do it. One, you have to create your accounts. So you don't have to be active everywhere at all, but you should own that space. And let's look at like the top 10 or top 15 places. I would say probably 10 in your case, where you have to set them up yourself, the profiles. You want to make sure the profiles are complete. You've got the image, your nice headshot, you know, with the about section, it's completely, your privacy settings are set up. And then there's this tool called Noam. And Noam will actually claim up to 500, I think it's bigger now, 500 profiles for you at once. And you put in your bio, you put in your password, and you never have to touch these accounts again. But you are using the same email address, let's say it's Gmail, and you're attaching yourself to all of these profiles. And it's lots of information about you that you put out yourself, which means that Google will rank that higher value than other types of content. And what you want to do is just own that page one. The active profiles will always show up first. So don't think that this is going to just look like a bunch of spam about you or whatnot, but it does tell the search engines exactly who you are from your own perspective without taking up a ton of your time, right? Because who has time to create all these? To note, when you do this, when you create profiles, when you send someone your headshot, make sure that the file name is your name. And it can say your name and headshot with the year, it can say whatever it is, but that's what will be read. So in the image section where you're like looking for Cynthia Johnson, you click images, it'll be your picture because you've made sure to tell Google exactly what that photo is. So keep that in mind. That's important, especially if you're trying to push old content down. That's a great way to do it. Linking. So the accounts that you are active on or that you've set up manually, you want to make sure they all link to each other. Links are huge online. And there's a reason why your YouTube page has 1,000 places for links and your LinkedIn page has 1,000 places for links. So when I say complete the profiles, connect them all as well through linking, just the active ones. You don't, need to go in and do this for all of them, just the ones that they use the most. Example, make sure also that you link these profiles to your website so that you're telling Google that this is in fact your website. Pinterest, I suggest always creating one and always connecting it to your website, because the way they've built the platform is that one website is connected to one Pinterest page and no more. So it's a great way of telling Google exactly who you are, because it could only be one and you have to have the website in order to do that. So again, this is also where you want to add your Google Scholar pages or any other research that you've done, or the Academia EDU links. Also links on .edu websites and .gov websites are extremely valuable. They tell the best stories online because they're valued the highest by Google. So if you have research somewhere or someone talks about you at a .edu website, ask that they link back to your LinkedIn, or ask that they link back to your profile, because you'll start to be ranked for the topics on those websites. So if people are looking for researchers, you might start to show up because you've told Google which LinkedIn profile is yours, and then is .edu has then said, yes, that is in fact this person, and they are qualified to speak about this. And it's done through linking. So these are just small ways that don't take up a ton of your time. They can have a huge impact long-term on how you're viewed online. So remember Patrick and his wonderful profile. So Patrick this is his Google Scholar. Two things to note here. There's a follow and there's a get my own profile. So you definitely want to get your own profile. If you can, you do again have to have that .edu email address. And then follow each other, right? Because you're connected, and the more you're connected to researchers, the more you're telling Google and online that yes, in fact, you are part of this community and you do this kind of work, especially if you're connected to people that are doing a similar type of research to you or what you're achieving. So the people that are in the papers with you, who helped write them, who you're connected to, those things all matter. And it's really just about paying attention when you publish them but really fine tune and button it up. Okay, it's out there. Like, what can I do to make sure that it gets the best opportunity to be seen as possible? And the following each other and the linking each other and asking for a link back to LinkedIn. These are really small ways that have a huge impact over time. Yeah, it gives you, and it's pretty, apparently if you have the Princeton is being favored here. So I would probably, if I was, at another university, call Google and say, hey, why is Princeton being featured here? I thought you were a Northern California company. But basically, you just have to have your .edu email address. And again, really valuable, so use it. And then your affiliations and so on. I actually couldn't go on because I don't have that email, but it looks like it won't take much time at all to set this up. And then, okay, messaging. You're like, okay, I've done all this stuff, but what do I talk about? I don't want people to steal my research. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't have time for this. And all of those things are very accurate and honest. In fact, the best thing you can do for yourself when building a personal brand is to be honest. I do not have time for that. Great. There's another way to do it. I promise you, there's always another way to do it. One way, the active people, they share what they're doing because they're doing a lot of things. They're constantly doing where they're going, what they're seeing, what they're eating, and so on. I don't think necessarily really applies to you except under very specific circumstances, but the second is your opinion on things. So knowing what you want to be an authority about, you read about. I'm sure you read a lot constantly. Sharing a piece of content that you've read with a comment or a commentary or feedback actually makes you more of the expert, because most people, roughly 73% of them, don't read content before they share it. So the digital world loves people that read the content, have an opinion about it, and write that opinion with the sharing because it adds context, and context reduces misinformation. Great way to become an authority in sharing content. So if you're reading something, you really don't even have to have an opinion about it. You just have to be able to summarize it in a way that others cannot from your perspective and your background. The third is, curated content, community discussions. One of the most successful newsletters I've ever seen is Moz, M-O-Z. So every Friday they release the top 10 best, most informative and useful digital marketing blogs from the internet. They don't write the content at all. They just curate the top 10 and they put it in a blog. This blog has millions and millions of subscribers. And I read it every week, and they don't even produce the content, but they're the experts because they own the space. And that considering they have a company that does this, really not, it's really not too much of a stretch for them to lean on their expertise and ask what the best are. So, thinking about ways to build a community or to share content online that doesn't require a ton of your time, you can look, again, that's back to the research part to be redundant, but look at other profiles and see what they've done, and take just a piece of their playbook. The other way is you pick a topic, a platform at a time. So let's say I don't have time to be on everything. I'm just going to be on LinkedIn, or I'm just going to be on Twitter. And once a week, I'm going to post a blog, or once a week, I'm going to host a 30-minute chat, or once a week, I'm going to post what I think are the top 5 most important articles in this subject every week. As long as you stay with the topic on the platform and keep it consistently at that time, you will build a community, you will become known for those things, and you don't actually have to do much, if any, posting in between. So like, if you think about it, half hour to an hour, once you've laid all the foundation pieces, a week, and keeping it consistent, and play with that one piece of time or that one idea that you had to grow it. But outside of it, there's really no need. And there's no need for you to be everywhere. Start small, start in one place, grow, and then move on. If that's something that interests you, is to grow and build an audience online. It's a great way to make sure that the people that you're communicating with and the time you're taking, that they're actually interested in what it is that you do and that you talk about. I see this a lot where people just build communities for the sake of building them. And when the big thing they built it for happens and nobody cares, they wonder why. It's because they didn't build a community of people that care. They built a community of people who are, I don't know what they're there for. So that's a time saver. And then make sure your intent is clear. My intent is to share the top 5 most important articles. My intent is to share 5 job opportunities a week. My intent is to inform. My intent is to chat, to learn, right? So as long as people understand why they're there and what you expect from them, then the communities will flourish. It's when the intent is to grow followers that it gets lost, right? 3 engaged followers is better than 3 million people who don't care about you and don't even remember following in the first place. And then there's the type of content. There's content by you, there's content about you, and content you care about. So the content by you are the things that you've written. Obviously, the content about you is great for engaging your network. They're like, oh, wow, I didn't know she was doing this or he was doing this. And then the content you care about is sharing other people's content or awards and so on. Super interesting. This is a tool called BuzzSumo, BuzzSumo. I think they also have a free trial, and there's probably free options that do this as well. I think Google Trends you can actually use for this. But this was postdoctoral researchers. I just did a little search to see what kind of content does well in this space. And first of all, I've never seen this as a result, but apparently really long content, very engaging here. So those research papers, and again, this is just, the keyword is just postdoctoral researchers. We can get a lot more creative in searching and figuring out, so that, again, when you're deciding how you want to present yourself online and the content you want to share, it's most effective. Press releases do well. There's the lists do really well. So again, that's the top 10 researcher, top 2 new jobs, those types of things. And I'm just about out of time, but I want to take this moment to make sure that we understand the difference between like the marketing and branding because oftentimes people are saying, well, I don't know what to do on LinkedIn and whatnot. It's important to understand the difference. So I use this little, so marketing showcases the benefits of things. So this is the sort of, I have a PhD. That's a benefit to you. Great. You need one. I have one. It's very similar to privacy. That's iPhone. Irony also, but this ad is boring. It's definitely a sort of reactionary piece, not a proactive piece. That's marketing. It's like reminding people the benefits of something and why they should work with them. But branding sells the dream. What is it like to work with you? And so once you've laid the foundation, and you've built and you've written your bios and you start to sort of put yourself out there and you're discussing things, don't forget to leave that like piece of yourself, put that piece of yourself in it. The profile setting up is one thing, but the way that you share content, the opinions you have, that's what makes us unique. That's what draws people to you. So as you're thinking about the content strategy for yourself, don't forget to leave out those human pieces. It's what everyone will attach themselves to from a community perspective. And then your brand dictates the marketing, not the other way around. What you're trying to achieve will dictate where you try to achieve it. Keep that in mind. Don't try to make don't necessarily, say, I just want to be, I don't know, on TikTok, and maybe there's no researchers on TikTok, maybe there could be. Just keep in mind what your goals are. Find the platform that fits the goal and then use that. Don't necessarily fall into the consistent hype that happens, because social media platforms come and go all the time.
Terrific.
Right.
Yeah, is there any last minute things that you wanted to share, Cynthia, before we close out?
No, I mean, this has been so interesting, and just even at all getting to know a little bit about what you guys do. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit intimidating, and I'm glad that we got to do this. So thank you for showing up and listening to me. And I hope, reach out if you have questions. I love to answer them. This is like my passion. So don't ever feel like a bother. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Cynthia.
you. Thanks.
And
Bye.
stay tuned for our next critical conversations coming up in December. All right. Thanks, everyone.